The Sorcery Only runs continue this week in Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. I'm really curious how this game treats Sorcery Only. My first playthrough of DS2 was actually a sorcerer, albeit not a Sorcery Only character. Dark Souls 2 has a special place in my heart, as it is actually the first Soulsborne game I ever completed. While it's not my favorite, and has a lot of mechanics that were correctly left in the garbage, it does a lot of interesting things. With character made, spells readied, and basically no research done, let's dive into Dark Souls 2. After speaking to 3 old ladies to get my identity assigned to me, always love that, I head into the Things Betwixt. I could skip this area, but I want to do at least a small section to get a feel for the difference in the way sorcery handles in Dark Souls 2 versus Dark Souls 1. And boy, does it handle so much better than Dark Souls 1. I mean, just look at this character animation. The snappiness of the cast, the projectile travels faster than a baby that's just learned to crawl, and it tracks. A reasonable amount. Maybe too reasonable in some places? I arrive in Majula and immediately depart on my journey. With this being the third challenge I've done, I've already leaned into the don't bother exploring or picking up most items. They will not help you. I arrive at the first boss, the Pursuer. You only get one chance to fight this boss here, and I crush it. He takes very little damage from my spells, but his attacks are very easy to dodge. Down to what is probably considered more typically the first boss, and it's nothing. This fight is nothing. Catch a bird to the last Bastille, but now's not the time for this area. Run my way through Hyde's Tower of Flame and stomp the Dragon Rider. He has a shield, but he doesn't seem to know how to use it. Then through the docks lighting all these torches, skipping most of it. Recruit Carhillion, who will serve as my first spell vendor, and into Flexile Sentry. Like the 4 kings before him, Flexile is a DPS check as this water rises throughout the fight. But I barely notice as he drops. Back to the Bastille, through this petrified hollow. Really curious who thought to use petrified hollows as barriers to progression. It's certainly an interesting idea. The Ruined Sentinels is a 3-on-1 fight that you can turn into a sequence of 1-on-1 fights through good spacing. This fight is tricky with spells. Keeping space from them to have time to cast spells is actually a challenge. They briefly have shields before throwing them away, which I appreciate. Run through the water, light some braziers so I can see, and it's into the first of 4 Great Souls bosses in the game. This fight really drives home how much better magic feels in this game compared to Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls. This fight is fast, at least by Dark Souls 2 standards, and I still have no trouble aiming, moving, and casting spells. 1 Great Soul down. Back to Hyde's Tower of Flame to rush the dragon. Takes a couple tries to get the speed and kill the ads, but I make it. Then in to face Ornnie 2. This is basically the same as in the Ornnie and Smoo fight, except no lightning damage from Ornnie and no help for him either. So it's easy. Chat with this NPC who I don't actually remember? He's rude to me, so I kill him. Got a trash halberd for the trouble. Then I make a mistake. See, I've been mostly ignoring optional bosses unless they get me something I want, or I forget they're optional, because I'm just seeing this game to credits. But Chariot and I have a long-standing beef, so I head through the Huntsman's Copse, taking several attempts to do so. Chariot is a rough fight, even with a melee weapon. It can be difficult to get in these alcoves in time to not get run over. and you have to kill the sorcerers here or they just keep resurrecting the skeletons. It takes some time, and this run back is not great, but I managed to get all the skeletons and mages dead. There is a fun cheese at this point where you shoot the chariot with ranged attacks, and once his HP is low enough, he'll fail to get over the gap at the end of the arena. I decide, however, that I'd rather lower the gate so he crashes and I can fight his two-headed horse fairly. Or as fairly as any fight is with all the magic in the world at my disposal. Most of Huntsman Copse is already cleared, so I next need to fight the Skeleton Lords. Bosses in this game really don't have any way to deal ranged damage, except this weirdly weak fireball attack. Seriously, for mages, you haven't invested many points in intelligence. Oh wait, this is Dark Souls 2. You need to boost intelligence and faith for pyromancy, my guys. I did bring Soul Spear in this fight because it can pierce enemies to help with the horde, except for some reason I used it immediately when it wasn't that helpful. Watching the footage back, I am perplexed. Being a challenge run means I can skip all of these drowned poison areas, because they do not matter to me. I did get briefly panicky when I reached this fog door, because I hadn't burnt the windmill yet. How did I miss the windmill? Wait a minute, this isn't Mitha. Covetous Demon? I completely forgot you existed. A very brief boss fight later, and I can go back to not remembering you existed. Lighting a metal windmill on fire to solve one of my favorite dumb puzzles in any game makes this boss easier. Oh, this is where the ladder boy shows up in this area. I knew he was here somewhere, I just never actually found him. Learned a thing. Into Mitha. I feel like you'd do better if your head was attached to the rest of your body. Oh well, she actually has a spell, but it does very little damage. No, this is how you cast Soul Spear. Oh, actually, that also dealt no damage. Okay. Okay, listen. Anytime a Souls fan complains about convenience ruining an experience, like adding teleportation in Dark Souls 2 or Stakes of Marika in Elden Ring, that they cheapen the experience or make it too easy or whatever nonsense you're peddling, I'm going to sit them down right at this bonfire and make them get to the Smelter Demon and then kill it. So you can do the whole run-up again. This run-up has like 12 mandatory kills on enemies that run too fast to ignore with an aggro range larger than the map, apparently. I don't even know where this guy spawns, because he sees me from 100 feet away through a wall. There is no fast run-up here either, because this is Dark Souls 2, and you aren't invincible for the first 2 seconds when going through a fog door. So even if you manage to rush past all the enemies, which is itself pretty tricky, you will not make it through that door because 100 samurai wannabes are right behind you. Smelter Demon isn't in a bad fight. His moves are well telegraphed, though they take some getting used to, and the constant fire damage in Phase 3 is kind of cheap, but it is pretty minor. But I will forever hate this boss because the run-up is the 3rd worst run-up in all of Souls games. Right behind this same boss in blue and the lightning unicorns in a blizzard. Thank goodness I'm not doing the DLC. And then comes the secondary of the Old Iron Keep, which is actually pretty reasonable. Enjoy lava. Some lava nonsense and an invader. I don't have enough spells to fight him because of his high magic resistance, so I just nope out of here. This boss is pretty easy. His moves are slow and overly telegraphed. It is funny to watch his head jerk every time I hit him with a spell, though. Time to unpetrify a woman, give her my shitty starting outfit, and get ambushed by all the poison jerks. I never really noticed their gross stomach bulges. I'm gonna say stomach bulges. Gross. I can't lock onto phantoms that show up in this area, which is not great because the free aiming is a fool's game. I choose running and hoping. Take a minute to free Ornifex so I can buy some spells later. Naushka is Quelaag but magic instead of fire, which means high magic resistance and nothing else of note. Wait a minute, she has an arrow rain attack? I don't think I've ever seen that before. It doesn't save her, but even more learning. And straight through Pharos because nothing here is required. I do discover the enemies here are weirdly vulnerable to magic, which is strange to me. Good lord, I forgot how long this game is. I'm not even halfway through. Hop into this well to grab the Staff of Wisdom, which is the best magic staff in the game. Only downside is it can't cast hexes, which means nothing in a Sorcery Only run. I don't have enough intelligence yet to wield it, but I can fix that. Oh, right, content warning, spiders. Skip to this timestamp on screen if you cannot stand spiders. Head into this boss despite dwindling resources because I guess someone has to die to the Prowling Magus eventually. But, I guess it isn't me. Swing by Ornifex's house to grab Homing Soul Mass. I remember/now know that torches get the spiders here to leave you alone, which I very much appreciate. Definitely would have helped on previous playthroughs. I feel like the torch mechanic in this game is really interesting, even if it ends up feeling pretty vestigial in some places. My staff is close to breaking. Casting spells reduces durability? I didn't even know that, and the fact that I'm this far into the game without realizing it may mean that durability is not a meaningful mechanic in this game. Fortunately, I have exactly one repair powder. It's the only one I'll need all game. The fight against Freya is slow and easy. Keep the torch out, slowly circle to avoid the beams, shoot this spider in the face. Oh geez. We had a spider warning earlier in the playthrough, and now we're gonna have a flashing lights warning. Someone set up the lighting system a bit too realistic in this game, so every step I take, the torch gets blocked and unblocked by my big staff. So I have to deal with that all area. Oh, that guy's going on his own journey. Where you going, statue? Seriously, this place is cursed. Passing through the gutter into Poison Funland. Statues that shoot poison, oil monsters, 2 separate invasions, and the wall snakes. This place brings back the darkest memories. I'm just gonna run through and hope. And I make it in one try? This boss is boring and easy as usual. I forgot how unexciting the mandatory bosses in this game often are. The areas of this game are hostile, and the bosses are a little anemic. It was at this point I legitimately forgot where to go next. Like, I had to look it up and remembered I now have the 4 Great Souls need to pass through the Shrine of Winter. Which is hilarious to me because it was so uneventful that I forgot I had them all, and that a key gate in this game is the Shrine of Winter. You have to kill 4 beings with souls dating back to the age of the gods to open a shrine, because your character can't climb over a chest-high wall. Dark Souls, everybody! Chat with the Emerald Herald and into the Dranglake Castle. Skipped basically everything and got into a fight with the Twin Dragon Riders. Tried to focus fire the guy on the ground, but he's actually pretty durable. What about Archer Boy? Oh yeah, no, he dies first. I take a quick detour to grab Soul Greatsword, the first real melee sorcery in the series, which is great. 3 casts of it, however, are not. Ignore the upside-down bondage man with a keyhole for a face. The Looking Glass Knight shield knocks away spells, which is a bit annoying, if fairly funny. Pretty easy to still hit him, though. He does briefly summon help, but the help needs to up their magic resistance. No, not the Shrine of Amana. This place sucks. It's so long and slow and boring and half underwater, which makes it even longer. The area boss is fine. Nothing interesting here. From there, we dive into the dark of the Undead Crypt, and it's actually easier to get around than I remember. I do love that emo boy over here says no light in the crypt, and then there are lit torches right outside the room. Listen, we're all just gonna have to accept that I'm using this staff to break the rocks. I know it's not spells, but I'm in a hurry here, and these stupid rocks give the Spectre Mall cops too much time to catch up to me. Velstadt is easy enough. His resistance is pretty good, but his ranged attacks are easy to dodge, mostly, and his buff phase just means free damage for me and my spells. Put on the King's Ring, through the door, and into Aldia's Keep. I killed this invader easily enough. Now, I don't remember the fastest pass through here. I think I've only been through this area twice, maybe? Fortunately, these big guys keep breaking walls that get me to my goal. I assume these are meant as like a jump scare to put you on the back foot, but I just found them really helpful. And then the dragon dies, because the dragon always dies. Oh, right. I forgot the zipline lets you just skip the entire dragon area. That's very convenient because there is nothing here I want. I don't know why these trials always wreck me. They are the same enemies as in Hyde's Tower of Flame, just scaled up. Maybe it's just the lack of space you have? Anyway, I managed to get through all of them except the last, and then just sprinted through. All these boys followed me, but they will leave once you get far enough into the Ancient Dragon. Who thankfully gives me the Dragon Heart without a fight, because this fight is boring and tedious. Using the heart, I go around getting some giants' kinships and killing the Giant King. This fight isn't that interesting, but the set piece area leading up to it's pretty cool. Wait a minute, what do I actually need to do to finish this game again? Oh, just Nishandra? Huh. Okay. Take the long walk down to the Throne of Wand. The throne defenders here are actually kind of tricky. I have to be careful to maintain spacing, and I keep shooting magic into their stupid shields. And you can't focus fire on one of them, because if one of them is dead, the other can revive them. Then comes Nishandra, and she has nothing, really, to stop me from shooting lasers at her until she dies. Wow. Throne Defenders ended up an interesting fight, and Nishandra was a joke. What an interesting run. And that is Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin down. Over halfway done in all these challenge runs, and wow, using magic in this game is night and day different from Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1. Everything about it felt better to use, even when it was also making my life miserable. This run was considerably harder than I'd expected, though. Not the bosses were basically all easy. It was the areas you ran through, or back through, they posed the most challenge. I have a lot of fondness for Dark Souls 2, but wow, being vulnerable while throwing switches and walking through fog gates is basically unacceptable to me. But only 2 games remain. and we will resume next time in Dark Souls 3. Wait a minute, can you not skip the credits? Yes, I know people worked very hard on this game, but I'm recording, and I've already seen these names.